This is Kickin' and Streamin' Podcast. Here are your hosts, Graham and Jocelyn.
All right, well, welcome everybody. And this is, of course, our second show of the year, but the first time we're actually recording in this year, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, that's right. We pulled a little, what are those called? Not switcheroo, but a little sneaky sneak there.
Yeah. The last show we did, even though we wish you a happy new year and the whole thing, it was recorded actually on December 30th or something like that. But we knew it was going to come out on New Year's, so we decided to, to greet you with the happy new year and the whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you don't need hungover hosts. So.
Yeah, I know I'm not myself on those days. Right. So with all that said, today we are back and we are going to be discussing The Wheel of Time on Prime Video. And so this time, all the episodes are available. We decided, let's have a go at it.
I did enjoy this series. It took me a while to get into it. I lost interest here and there, but it managed to pull me back in. And I think it's a really good adaptation. I have not read the book series, but it really seems to be a good adaptation and maybe brings some different elements to it that might improve on the books from what I've read.
Yeah, I think I'm with you in the sense that even though not in the whole context of, swords and sorcery thing, because, I'm a big, Game of Thrones guy, whereas I'm not a big Tolkien but I do see your point, and I also do think that you're right in the sense that it seems to bring a very different element to this entire genre of, sword and sorcery. And sometimes that element is good for a certain amount of time within the storyline. And at some point, it sort of like fades out and you're left asking yourself, what the fuck I'm watching?
Yes.
But I have to say that this is a show where I see a lot of potential, and I think if there are more seasons to come, then this show could get better and it could become the next Game of Thrones, if I dare to say so. What do you say, George?
I would absolutely agree with you as a competition to Game of Thrones if it weren't on Amazon. I hate to say that because I don't think a lot of people watch Amazon. I think if this was on HBO Max, for example, it would have blown up and completely been the next the successor to Game of Thrones. And I think that's a shame.
Yeah.
Honestly, just when it's just platform. I'm not talking about a production value change or anything or actors or anything at all like that. I'm just talking about platform change as to where it is. And I think if this had been on HBO, we would be talking about a mega hit. And I do think it's a shame that that's probably not going to happen with it being on Amazon. That being said, though, it is pretty popular.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's as popular as it would be. And again, that's a shame because it does have good production values. I enjoy the cast very much.
So we are in agreement with that, Jojo. And to continue talking about this show, let's have you put it up there for our listeners. What is this show about, Jojo?
This one's a little hard.
Yeah.
A little hard, actually. So it is fantasy. It's sword and sorcery fantasy, science fiction. It is based on a series of very beloved novels that I believe there's 14 novels in the series, if I'm remembering correctly. So this one is an adaptation of, I think, if I read, it's sort of a mixture of the first two novels in the series. If the source I read was correct, but it's at least the first novel in the series. And what it is about is the fact that, or the idea that time is a wheel, that it is constantly spinning, that we sort of repeat patterns. that people will be born again when the wheel of time needs them to be born again at certain times. So there's that. There is a sort of a power that is, I suppose you could say, celestial or godly, not of this earth, that is something that women can channel for miraculous events such as healing and protection and things like that. And but there are men who can touch the power, but if they use it, it turns them mad, makes them crazy. So this is the story of one in particular, a woman in particular, who has received through dreams and visions and prophecy that a new dragon is going to be born. The dragon is someone who is born every few thousand years, and there is a fight with the Dark One to, I guess, essentially over Earth. And it is interesting in the series that they sort of go forwards and backwards in time. They do show the fact that time is a wheel, is a cycle, and that it's it's not linear. Time is not run in a straight line, but it runs in a circle. So that's a cool part about it. But so it's just about the quest for her finding these people that she believes are part of a prophecy. She and her people believe are part of a prophecy to win the war for Earth, for light, and them coming together, their relationships between one another, and how they get to what may be a final battle with who they call the Dark One.
I think you have done a fantastic job. I wouldn't know even where to start if I were the one with the question of what is this show about. Because while I'm saying this, there are so many elements and dynamics that I discovered on this show that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to take notes and things like that, because there are, first of all, there's a convergence of world philosophies, if you will, that I see here. And also, this show criticizes a little bit of the way that modern humans, especially in Western culture, we have an incredibly binary way of addressing questions that don't necessarily have one answer. And time in itself is one of those questions that does not have an answer, whereas in the Western culture, we feel that we have defined time. And it is, again, that linear philosophy. Like, move forward, and if you go back in time, you're going backward. But if you notice, the philosophies of the East, they have always utilized the patterns of circle, in that what goes around comes around. And so is time. While we live in this one life, and we think that it is everything, that everything goes away once we pass away, we don't know. There's no way of us knowing whether or not what we do when we pass away is just passing on to another circle of time that does not exist in this particular circle.
Okay, so you can watch this show just for the sword and sorcery, right? There's pretty women in it, there's handsome men, there's sword fighting, there's that kind of thing. If you want to watch it just for that, you absolutely can. But if you want to watch it from a more philosophical stance and think about how this is pulled from different religions of the world over thousands of years, how it addresses the patriarchy, misogyny, things like that, you can absolutely dig deeper into it like that. So I do understand the appeal of sword and sorcery as a whole of a genre. There's some that are crap, but but good ones absolutely are going to make you think. But the lovely thing about them is you can just take them at face value and go, I'm just going to lean back and watch, pretty people or ugly people or whatever beat the crap out of each other, and that's that. But I do like that this one has some more meat on the bones, if you will, and there is a lot of pulling from culture, from real life, things to think about that do affect us in the way we live our lives right now.
The way these production, and I think the casting did a brilliant job in that respect, unites people within the same frame. Every time we saw it was a very multi-ethnic gentilist that they created, and from different regions within the story, and I loved it. I love all of that, the diversity that they were able to bring. Also, Jojo, you talked about the touch of feminism to this entire story, but it's not the imposing feminism that, snowflakes are afraid of. It rather brings to light how, no matter how much time passes, misogyny is always going to be there. And even in the way that power is distributed. Would you care to elaborate on that for me? Because I was able to, that issue of the women are able to channel this power, and they are indeed powerful, yet to a certain extent, men are still in charge. It is men that wield the power of big movements. Talk about that a bit, Judge. What do you think of this?
So I have to laud this for some of what it did for addressing misogyny and sexism, and some of it disappointed me on a little bit, which I can't really talk about too much because I think it'll give away the ending. No, it won't. I can talk about it. Okay, so I think that it's a very interesting idea that women could wield this power, this very, very strong force. And it did not affect their mind. They did not become drunk with power. They did not become mad with power, at least not what we were shown. These women, although they became powerful and they made a white tower, a refuge for themselves, it was mostly peaceful, and they used their powers when they had to for violence when they had to. So I found that interesting when you would compare that to the fact that in this world, if men were able to reach out and touch that power, they could become incredibly powerful, perhaps even more powerful than a woman, but it drove them mad. And mad in the sense of, I think one of the first men that did it killed his entire family. And it just made them very violent and made them very much like, I don't know how to describe it, but just out for themselves, out for revenge, out for more power, more. I want more. And so you kind of saw the difference. I think you could use that probably as an allegory as to the way the author felt about how women would use power and about how men do use power. In this world, though, you also see quite a few of the large strongholds and quite a few of the smaller packs of people are run by men, which is interesting to me in a world where women can wield power. I feel that this massive, mystical force that there would ever be, like, you feel like men would just always be lackeys, honestly. You would think that women would treat men the way that men treat women currently, but that's not what seems to happen. So you still have men that are in charge quite a bit. And then what we see at the end of this, it disappointed me a little bit because I felt that the protagonist, the very, very important person, the one that this is all about, I did not understand why the choice was made to make that a male. I was confused by that. I felt that if someone was going to be able to wield the true power, that it would have to be someone feminine. But I may have gotten lost a little bit in some of the mythology of the story. So they may have lost me a bit. It may have to be a certain gender. I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, I see your point. I see the last point that you're making there. And what it makes me think about is the way society because society is always run by men, right? Even when we have to recognize that a woman has great power, right? We create a place for that woman to be.
Yes.
And it can only be that place. So if you notice, throughout the series, whenever it was discovered that a woman was able to channel this thing, it was, that the White Tower is going to recruit you. You're going to be relegated to being an Aes Sedai.
Yes.
That's all you could be. It's just an amazing thing. And I don't know if the author did that on purpose. But you could tell that any woman who wielded that power could only be relegated, and perhaps I'm using relegated in that respect in a with a broad brush, if you will. But I see it as a relegation, because even again towards the end, right? I see the point where none of the males that were part of the group, to me, qualified the Dragon Reborn. Because all of them had a certain flaw that made you suspicious. The moment you could see them having that power of being the Dragon Reborn, right? You can see all the flaws in them that could make them tyrannical. Yes,
exactly. Exactly. And if touching that magic amplifies the bad in you for men, specifically for the masculine sex, then, how could that possibly be the Dragon Reborn?
Exactly.
Unless the wheel this time wants the Dark One to win, since the wheel is in charge and the wheel is the one that is churning this out. So,
but again, at the same time, though, I feel like the story kind of got lost in the line of storytelling. I don't know. Of course, we've not read the book, so we couldn't know. It is possible that other decisions were made for this particular series.
True.